Welcome back. So, I thought I'd do a recording on this shallogram because I'm just thinking about it a lot. I find myself just kind of staring at it. So I thought I'd stare at it on camera and talk about it. So, here we go. Whoa, that happened fast. So, okay, here's some images I made. Kind of drawing across it. So let's go, before we go into the structure, the shallogram itself is relatively simple. It has this, it has this fracture here that I feel like generally points to its boundary, like here, and plays into what's happening, kind of thing, maybe. And there's other lines going this way, generally, or like there, that way. And then on this side, we see some going this way. So we got this way, this fracture line, there's some other more nuanced details there. Whatever is going on there. General details around it with like these spots. And then this structure. And then the other side is like this. So I believe this one goes to like past the hump on this side to here. So this connects around to the other side where it goes that way and kind of stops there. And then there's this thing there's this thing, maybe some sort of divide between them, maybe another divide there between like a smaller one. Maybe where this stops, a small one there too. Some kind of structure that's subtle. Okay. So, I guess we might as well look at this one. I've been looking at this, and I'm like, okay, this is, first of all, this is not how ammonites are structured. I did one of these. And I went, also this is where this is from. I'll link this from Rudraksh Guru, who was kind enough to give me permission to publish images, which this one looks like it probably deserves mentioning. What was I doing though? Oh yeah, images. And then here, and put the image in. And maybe extend its boundaries. This is pretty much what I found. Like, it's suggested ammonites, but it's not an ammonite because it's kind of going the wrong way here. Like, these in an ammonite go this way across. Like this. So they go around, like, the outside of the structure. So it's really not doing that. And real quick, to rule out that it's just two seashells. Like, it's not just two seashells. Like, one seashell here with a kind of a boundary over here and another here. So it's not that, because this one on the right continues across over this way, while the one on the left continues across over this way. And then up here they interact on both sides, where this goes out and around and goes up into, around, up into. So it's one structure. So if it's not an ammonite and it's one structure, it's quite fascinating because it has a chakra, like it has a boundary that goes downward and then over, and then down over, and then up over, out to some sort of pseudo spiral thing that then has like a connection to another chakra. So it has ammonite characteristics, but it's not in the typical ammonite structure. So it's interesting it even relates them. Then I came across things like this. Just like, that's interesting. If what we're seeing is current induced, because ammonites are current induced because shallograms demonstrate that, and this is just another like detail of how currents can flow that sheds light into things. Probably by the way it looks like a pristine representation of something mathematical. It looks much more mathematical than like two seashells abutting one another. And for it to be a single system, like, it doesn't really make sense because its structure is not like it's not like an actually spiraling shell. It's more like a flat shell that has connection behind the shell through to the other side. But then this shell itself is flat enough to maybe have some other shell connected to it. But then it's like, again, if that's the case, like if it's two halves that are kind of unified somehow, they're literally extending into one another and have a chakra structure like an ammonite. So if it's current induced, then maybe this is current induced, I was thinking, and based on its time frame dating to around 558, so maybe not. Maybe not based on the time frame. Actually, 541 is where I generally interpret the Earth's expansion process and global flood to have occurred, beginning and ending at the beginning of the Holocene, where then radiometric dating methods became more stabilized into today's rate of decay. But then when we look back, using radiometric dating, we see a long amount of time because the Earth was expanding due to the global flood, which was due to the use of vortex weapons that punctured the mantle, and it did all these things, including injecting a jet stream of current into the center of the Himalayas, where they formed the Damodar Kund, where shallograms are all found and have many unique characteristics, such as this. Like, for example, just for, if anyone hasn't seen shallograms before, like, I can just go to this disprove science one, and maybe not aim to disprove science as much as by sharing these, as much as to just show the spectrum of what's going on in shallograms. Like, they have an ammonite here conjoined to another ammonite pointing up at this point. This one has an ammonite spiral here with a like wrist thing, another ammonite down below it, and a little too regular of a structure. This one has a entire like hexagonal structure with this little conduit path. This connects back around here, like it wraps around here, goes back to around here, and then goes up and over and connects here, where the base is like a current flow path. That current of actual material is flowing through the structure as a whole due to the flood that's moving the particles and water simultaneously in high pressure circumstances where this material is being shaped and in a way where its particles are not just stationary, they're in motion and they flow in complex structures as a result of the water present that is physically moving in the patterns that then causes a flow of the material from this top segment to flow down into the base that then flows back around to a conduit path where it flows back to the top, and in the process causes this fanning out like structure of currents that erodes an ammonite and then causes the material to differentiate to be more pyrite, more where it's more shale in the subtle grains, because essentially the larger grains get separated out by the process to enter into these regions, which then lead to places for the water to flow, which then lead to further erosion to the point where they're just emptied, which then leads to mounds of like pyrite, high pyrite content materials relative to the rest of the rock, and other nuances of it all of it being though a result of highly pressurized currents that are pushing into the stone from all directions, with a like down, like a bottom, so it's like held down by gravity too, where it's held down by this overwhelming current from above, but then currents are flowing into it from highly pressurized currents in all directions that are then causing a current flow in the material while holding the material within the confines of this overall current that doesn't allow the system to like be one with the surroundings, so it actually is its own structure that is separate and probably interacting pretty substantially with across currents with the other systems, other shallograms being formed. But that's like much less clear than looking at a single shallogram. Another one that just has random like don't really make sense, these straight segments, and then abruptly goes up, abruptly goes over, continues over that way, but then goes down over here, goes down here, skipping segments along the way with these, where over here it looks very like ammonite like. So it's frequently in shallograms they lose the like structure while still having the structure. Like this one doesn't have an ammonite, but it has the teeth of an ammonite. It has components of an ammonite, like this happens, but it's like bubbling out of these teeth structures. Also like an ammonite like thing going on in here that didn't quite form because of the shape of the rock. This one has suture patterns that wrap around the rock, and there is no sign that this is part of an ammonite because of the way the suture patterns physically wrap around the rock itself and are not a function of some other structure. They're literally a function of this structure, meaning they're not from some like spiral shape ammonite. It's just the same process was being manifest on this stone, but it had very peculiar circumstances that led to it not really forming an ammonite structure, but it still formed the suture pattern, which happens when a current, which is compressed to the surface, is wrapping around the surface of whatever surface it is, compressed to the surface, but then experiencing pressures from a specific direction of another current that are physically flowing this way and pushing the boundary here, which then essentially causes it to stretch out into a new path, as well as probably that itself reduces the pressure on that like path of flow. Like it's exhausts in a way. So essentially, then it wraps around and even wraps over top the rock. Whereas in a shalagram in an ammonite, it would be like that feature would be expected to be found on actually an ammonite structure like here, but it's found there. This one has like circles cut out that wrap around the whole thing. Random teeth here. Another one. This one just has a drill type of current flow that got into the stone and created an actual ammonite structure by the current getting in that way. This one had current going in over top the stone that seemingly collided and then caused a current to go off this way. This one formed within a chunk. So like a chunk came out of a shalogram that formed an ammonite within it, but then that chunk, by the currents eroding around it, basically separated it from the rest of the shalogram, and these tend to form with openings into the stone, so it can actually physically come out of the stone. And when that happens, the piece that comes out of the stone didn't necessarily come into like a peaceful current flow. It came into the same highly pressurized current flows that then treated it like a new system, pretty much, where it eroded its surface to just smooth it down, generally speaking, but then its actual structure led to this like path where current wrapped around the stone along like a belt structure, which then interacted with some cross current, possibly by like a boundary over here, or as far as possible from this boundary some reason, which may be depending on which way it rested. Like it may be rested on this side, maybe it rested on these. It's hard to say. In terms of like an overwhelming pressure pushing it into something, it could have easily got lodged in larger structures in something like this, where the belt is kind of wrapping into a pressure over here more so than over here, leading to a cross, basically a cross current more so here, leading to an eddy where this current wrapping around just cuts into the rock rather than going this way around and starts to form an eddy, and then they kind of feed into it together, I guess. From this direction feeds in and this direction feeds in, to the point where it's like two interactions of currents creating the structure. Maybe actually a very like fundamental thing I never really thought about in terms of the pathings they take, which will maybe relate to what we're about to look at. So before I just ramble on, the point is they're not actually fossils, and that's why this is so amazing, because it really looks much more mathematical when we realize it's caused by current flows, and see, well, ammonites are mathematical, generally speaking, in like a growth pattern that it repeats itself in a fractal way that can be analyzed and just studied just purely mathematically without really connecting it to biology per se. The same thing is going on here, but where it's like different enough to see some other component. So I thought I'd talk about it. So now that I've kind of introduced this, maybe I should get into it. Okay. So there seem to be flows that are more visible here. Like depending on where we're looking, it's obviously more visible. Like this one, we can see there's like a crevice that goes between a tooth, as I call them, like these. So it's kind of doing this same structure as this, but notice it goes around this way. It's not going along this axis in the structure. It's only going like around, down, and into the chakra. It's got more of this motion than in and around and in and around, in and around. Whereas this goes across the chakras, between the chakras. Like if these are chakras, forming in some like subtle way, where chakras can do, like, maybe I should point that out real quick too. Like this one, for example. Like it's forming chakras by eroding a path. It's got an actual chunk of ammonite behind the chakras, but it hasn't actually formed them. It's also forming the lobes into like the windows in, but it hasn't formed them either. But it's begun to form the structure. Sorry if I had that pointlessly small. Sometimes I realize like I'm not zooming out enough. Let me see, specific one, and then this one that has the openings, and notice these are going that way, not this way. But then on the ammonite structure, which goes around here, and typically would continue like over that way, and even like generally around this way to where this boundary is, and generally to where this boundary is. In that stretch, notice it's not that formed here. So it's not like, essentially there's a current flow in an eddy over here, taking the complex shapes of an eddy, though, that because of its highly pressurized circumstances that are physically creating the structure, but then it's not so influential on this area as to actually shape it very much, but it has subtle features that extend into it. So it's kind of reaching over here, but kind of not. So it almost comes out as like a side current that goes over this way and interacts with another current that then leads to an actual chakra forming here on the side of the structure, where the chakra is like the focal point, the bump in the center, like that one, which shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be on the side over here with current, with these lines pointing at it, when this structure clearly continues up this way over here, and like that's part of it. There shouldn't be a chakra there if it's fossils. But it makes sense for current flows. Okay. But this is, again, though, it's just different, and it shows that current flows can do wide spectrums of things. It made me, maybe I'll just go into what I've been thinking now. So I was thinking, if we go out further, back to these lines, these would suggest a current was flowing generally in this direction. Generally going this way. Even down here, generally going one way or the other. They could be going this way, or they could be going this way. Like generally overall sweeping across in one direction, though, is how I'm thinking. And then over here, these are kind of in opposition. Like they're not quite like perpendicular, but they're relatively not in the same plane or the same direction, whatever. In the same plane, I guess, but not in the same direction. So I was thinking, like, essentially, somewhere down here, like, specifically here, between this segment, up to about, like, a midway point across this way, like, based on these paths, as like, a 90-degree angle, like, cutting it across this way, and then another one cutting it into, like, a quarter segment over here. Where at this first quarter segment is a region of perhaps, I don't see like distinct reason to see it was any stronger than elsewhere, but maybe it had a higher amount of material flowing through there. Or perhaps because of running into resistance over here, it kind of accumulated on the boundary, like from momentum kind of way, which then led to some of it deflecting like inward, and just not doing this, just literally cutting a little like opening, say, into this region. And over time, though, it created a larger general opening in that quadrant. I was thinking, like, this area started to have current flows cutting because of this opposition, instead of going into it, into the actual current flow, deflecting around it, but also down, where it wraps around and goes in this way, specifically generally in here, and doesn't come out yet. Like, there's no counterflow. I believe, none of the images show it conclusively. I believe this is not actually closed underneath. Like, there's an actual pathway underneath, I believe. I'm just totally inferring based on my interpretation, but whether or not it's there, there's a good chance there's like greater amounts of erosion, I think. The shallogram is already sold and someone owns it, but so it's hard to say. Maybe they'll one day find out about this and let us know, but point is, over time, though, it's running into resistance and bending in until it gets like to a right angle with these, like over here, and then it starts going upward, where it's like not the same current though, where essentially it goes in here over time, leads to a structure that it goes over and under this way and comes back out here, but then it runs into resistance and goes back in through like this area. So imagine a width, rather than thinking in single bands of current flow, like a width of current flow going in like right here, that's actually reflecting off of pressures to flow in here. And then over here, like as the structure is forming, it starts to prevent current flowing that way and forces current over this way, but there's pressure occurring here so it doesn't erode this area. As we'll find out as we go, there's reason to believe that this like held its structural integrity through the process because of the process, effectively, relating to that there's actual current flows of the material itself. Okay, so current though flows in here, goes back around this chakra structure and comes out over here, but at that point it's like moving to the next tier where it goes in across like a band of similar width, where it went in here like across this amount and comes out across like that amount, and then comes in again over the next segment, goes around, takes its next stretch goes around, takes the next stretch up to pretty much like, probably in terms of like there being segments, some kind of balance point where it's generally perpendicular to this, where then it fills in that region, goes over to the generally perpendicular over here, one of these, and then wraps from here up and around to over here because there's current flowing this way. So it goes over here into this pressure though, and then takes this area. Then it flows in here and goes up and over and just keeps doing that, where it goes in this side over here and then up this side, in this side. But now we're getting to a pinch point. Whereas over here, it's kind of flowing in. Like, la la la. I mean, certainly not la la la, but it's kind of going through the tunnel. It's like a water slide. But then it's reaching some kind of end where it doesn't, it's just running into resistance. So if we look closely, like, as it goes around here and goes up, we can specifically notice this side, this groove here connects with this groove. But then this groove kind of connects with it, maybe connects with it, also connects here. And then there's another groove down here that seems to go maybe this whole stretch, potentially. But this groove is actually underneath this groove. And then this groove, which is the next one over, really kind of goes up to and underneath this groove, which then goes under, over top this groove, or maybe underneath it actually. This one goes underneath this one maybe, but then this one goes underneath this one. Almost like there's a collision that's leading to a kind of crescendo of the energy flows that are then flowing through this chakra structure that like has even like beyond this one. If we look at this path and then this one, underneath there is like this little wedge, and underneath there is kind of this thing, and then this, and then over here at the chakra we've got this almost like column of like almost wet looking material, like this, the way these, like the chakra looks, it looks almost like it was wet, more smooth than over here. It looks more something. But then it continues across through this, where that smooth material kind of continues, almost like it's like saturating this material out in like bubbles of material that are like are condensating almost on the outside of this structure, that are then producing a column of it though across and out over this way, is what I'm thinking. Mind you, where this is again is up there, so there's probably, what I was thinking is, even though this is perhaps like related to this segment, it looks like it bends in and has an actual connection to like right here, where essentially these paths are kind of going up that way rather than going in other directions. Seemingly related, so I was thinking maybe some of it went off that way. Underneath the current, maybe? I don't know. And went around the other side. No, no, that's not. That's right, that's right. This is what I was thinking. I was thinking the opposite. This jet actually went, what if it went this way, around to the other face, and then went up and around and back down this way to then kind of like define its boundary in a way. Like it defines its outer boundary by a current flow that it emits this way that goes all the way around and back around the rock. So like going around and back this way and then coming back this way where then it defines this boundary. So this, I kind of try to draw it like this current path with this chakra boundary, the tube thing, chakra boundary. Maybe we can look at some chakras. Like this maybe like the way it's kind of bumpy and has layers and so on. It definitely looks like one. It just looks like one. Even though again this goes around this way. Like this goes around, over, down. And possibly even just cycles at some point. Although, I'm not sure. I guess maybe it just goes to the next little rung. I don't know. This one has a opening with two ammonites inside of it. Like there's actually a lobe, like this lobe is actually here. A larger lobe that kind of has chakras forming here with this like tieredness to it down to here. Maybe it's some in between of this and ammonites of the like baculate structure, which is also current induced. Notice it has a chakra down here, like contained within it, and then has its same structure across here with lines across, even though it's contained to a smaller distance inward because it did the same process in two directions. And this one overwhelmed the other direction but didn't remove the imprint of the process. Like these are clearly chakras, but they're not very defined. Clearly chakra, not very defined. Much more defined. This. Also this one. It's kind of what I was just talking about in a way. Like a spiraling from an entry point. I don't know. I don't know if these are that related in the process in terms of exactness of the process. It's certainly the same general current flows inducing eddies. It's just this one seems to have its own circumstances, a little more unique. Or not more unique, just unique to the other one. Some other ones, like these, notice this one has a lobe going out here. And then this one has a lobe going out here. where their boundaries extend into one another because they're two eddy systems interacting. This one's extending out here, but didn't fully. This one's got like a pseudo chakra type thing going on here. Another chakra there. So like an ammonite system going on here, another ammonite system here, kind of interacting and not really like distinguishing exactly the dominant structure, so it has multiple kind of thing. Similar down here. This one just got a bunch of things like this current path going over to this one and going down and around here. So this ammonite, some reason, is closely related to this ammonite because it has a path that goes around like that. This one connects right there to this one. There's a lot of connections like that. Like this goes and connects there. This has a thread back to another one over there. This goes back to another probably. The way this one looks, I don't know exactly. Like this one. Okay, let's go back here though. Still not the same. Like we're seeing different. I know I colored it all cool, colorful, although I realized later maybe it should have been like starting from a color and then spiraling out like I just described it to another color rather than what I did starting from a color at the center and going outward. I probably could have done the same thing starting up here with like purple. Purple in, purple out, but then becoming blue and red, or down through Roy G. Biv, all the way to here where there's like a flame, maybe even. That's kind of my thoughts, is there's like distinguishably different things going on the top half and bottom half. This is more smooth. This one kind of extends beyond the general boundary. Like if we follow this boundary, it really extends past it. Whereas down here, it doesn't seem to. Like it generally follows this boundary. Maybe it extends a little bit in like subtler ways, but this one really, like, as it approaches here, it just bows out. So I just kept thinking about it, and maybe I'll just go to over here. Say, it made me think of Alex. I started typing Alex Jones. I knew I'd do it. Makes me think of this kind of thing. Like, Alex Gray's art from a lot of the Tool albums, and I just know he makes awesome art. And it's very popular, and people probably generally, a lot of people have seen it. So they kind of like thought about it. I'm just saying, like, it looks like that, right? Like in a lot of ways, maybe not identical, but like, it just makes me think of some fundamental like pillar that just is how things are structured in these pillars that then have like spaces around them where current flows that make the pillars that like feed the pillars that then cause like emission jet streams, maybe even waste down through the system. Tend to be pictured with like a third eye kind of thing, and then lots of eyes, which make me think of like moving grains in larger grains that are more stationary, where there's channels that the grains are moving in as this process happens, that then flow and shape the entire system. Kind of like humans as like system, just living beings, I guess. Animals, all of us, plants, even just everything is like moving in some reality and shaping it, but in some flow that's like subtle and moving things along, where like time, maybe. Time, I guess, just is like gives something in which flow can flow. Without time, flow can't flow. Like this one. This one's kind of cool to compare. Like the way it has these eyeballs going through between the two heads. So if there's two heads, it kind of makes me think of sideways. So like the way this is straight lined is in this direction. And then what we're looking at here is the connection between these two systems, which then has a lobe like protruding out over here, kind of like over there, even though there's not quite the same over here, maybe a little bit though. Almost like a masculine feminine, which is definitely an aspect. Like this is very much like this though. Oh my god. And then this maybe representing this, even though it's not like through. Or representing like a current flow coming this way that's getting pinched and running into like compression, and then passing the resistance of the chakras and coming out into a region it can fan out again. Current flow of the eyeballs between like more stationary systems. It's so cool. This one I was kind of comparing. I was thinking more like up here, kind of the way this is. Sleeping guy. Dreaming. I'm not saying there's actually... Pardon me, maybe I should click that for a second. There's Alex Gray. This is his website. I'll for sure link this. But he's got art over here, which I kind of went through. I mean, we can go through it, whatever. There's stuff that's like this. It's kind of like, I don't know if I should scroll by it in the YouTube video, but so be it. Yeah, you're right. You should stop on that. What's going on there? It does have a masculine, feminine type thing to it. It kind of made me think, well, maybe this thing is like elongated thing, and then maybe this like focal point. Oh my god. I like this Buddha looking thing. Third eye, tears of joy. Ah, so cool. Shoot. So cool. Let's see if we can find any that seem related to the shallogram. Oh, that's pretty. That's so, it's so cool. Oh my god. I didn't really look at these at all. Just realizing. This one is cool. I like this one a lot. It made me think of this. The Holy Family. Maybe there amounts to being some kind of masculine side and feminine side to this. I don't know. Where, like, it's going through and out this way. Getting focused here and then fanning out over here. Leading to this flow of these eyeballs, even with, like, ribs. Like the teeth have around here. Like they're not just flat like up here. Up here is flat, which is interesting because sometimes in shallograms it approaches a more just like singular structure like that. But then going back down through to give birth to a new system, which is like at the heart of this. There's so many details. Freaking incredible. I don't know how to. Okay, there we go. Oh my god. Net of being 180 by 90. Holy shit. It's 15 feet. I'm like, right? By 7.5 feet. Oh my god. That sounds huge. This one's got so many in it. This is more like a singular system. This is more like a network. Kind of like the other shallograms like this. Like sometimes it's a network. Oh, I like this too. Like the face into the face, so cool. And then yeah, like this one. Whoa. Oh my god. I don't know what this is, but it looks interesting. Oh my god. In terms of the text, the face facing sideways, the skull in the face with a baby inside the skull on both sides, cross at the eyes and the third eye. Whoa. He's got so many in that. Oh my god. It's so cool. Okay, okay. Whoa. This kind of shifted. Oh my god. This reminds me, I was looking at the Caduceus. I was just kind of looking today. Maybe I'll just bring this up because I was noticing some things that I was just kind of thinking about, I guess. I noticed, kind of similar to that shallogram, so maybe it's good. The way this has one side go up and over the other one. So I was looking at this where we have this region of like just desert, and then another region of desert where they coupled have like a general connection point. Mind you, this is like a shallogram opening lobes in my interpretation. I've come to the interpretation that this is the lobe of a shallogram, and this is the chakra region, and this is presumably the other lobe. But then I noticed it kind of goes up and over, like it has a first angle this way, like this boundary is kind of related seemingly to this boundary. And then the Himalayas go over and around and up and just pretty much past this one. So it's all, imagine there's two paths, one going this way and another going this way that kind of like start opposite to one another. So like this one doesn't do it, but like this, the way it starts. So this is the one in the health system. I don't know. And this is the hermetic one, the Caduceus, which has two snakes, and then I guess it doesn't have wings on this one either. But the two snakes and the wings, I noticed in one of my recent videos on the basically I'm trying to think how to show this quickly. This in one of my recent videos, I kind of interpreted this region as being like a caduceus of current flows, where there's a current flow going up and over and then down and in, and like physically wrapping around some kind of boundary in a like a caduceus, like a pole, like this rod, like it's the way this is, where it goes over and then under, over, under, over, under, and then facing each other. this one, and so it goes under, over, and then this one goes over, under. So they just do the opposite: over, under, over, under. So I was kind of looking at here for other reasons. I was thinking, basically, I was looking over here at this area and noticing, well, it kind of like directly goes like over here to like this area. In terms of like another similar structure to that is like right there. And then if I go over this way and just like there's the tip of the Himalayas, then I drew a line that I tried. I started not over here, but I tried to extend it as far as I could, like going through these. Might have started. I can't quite get to there. But essentially there is where I was kind of aiming to go. Whether or not this is like where the rod is, if there is such a thing, like if we follow it though. So if we envision this is low, so this is like down, down, down. So like it started down and went under the rod, let's say. Where over here it started up. Started at the up point and went over the rod. But then it goes down and around. Where over here, mind you, this one is creating like this kind of terrain. So it's coming up from that type of circumstance to create like more of it up. So down, down, up, up. But then it goes over here. It goes down, down. Possibly through. To then like up, up, and then like down, down. I know maybe it's kind of ridiculous, whereas if I go this way, up, up. Like when I say up, up, I'm saying like, this one doesn't do it right either. Yeah, like this. It's just not. Maybe this one. It's like up. And it's still up here, but then it goes down. And then it stays down there, but then it goes back up. And then it's still up here. It goes down, down here, but then back up. Like that. That's what I mean by down, down, up, up. So it's up, up, but then it goes down and stays down over here. And like participates in this and this. And then goes back up. Maybe like out here. I don't know. I was also thinking there's a good chance this is more related to pre-expansion or like at least when the continents were significantly closer. But it's interesting that this location that's got the guy looking into the telescope kind of thing, that seemingly has like a telescope type thing here too, instead of like looking this way, like on his back looking like this way. Instead he's seated looking through like a telescope anyone can have in their yard kind of telescope that then goes right over to that corner, that focal point of energy. And then I noticed like it has like almost like a pressure point and then another pressure point that pushed like around the structure that this pressure point was reaching, so it actually went further and created this weird like divide here between the boundaries, and then went in again here and up this way and over this way, or vice versa. Started over here and then like slid down this way. Maybe. Ooh. It might have been that this was actually flowing in this way to here. I can't remember. The Northern Andes form. I know there's older than that. I know it's considered pretty young, so maybe it did have a current flow going across this way that then continued across here into this location. But then the continents separated, so current flow that was going across here and then exiting like over here, like in this region, that was then down here pretty much. So if we look at the magnetic anomaly map real quick to kind of get a better bearing on the ocean floor in this area, there's this boundary that goes out here where current was flowing this way, but then it was running into resistance and going this way up to this point, which is then seemingly was down here, which then if we followed over here was around here. Where is this? Yeah, right there. Right there, coming in and going to the mantle puncture hole location, to the secondary mantle puncture hole, as I've called it, or really the focal point of everything that was going on over here in the Western Pacific, when all sorts of things. See my last few videos. I won't get into that in this video. See episode 400 for sure for more details on how that relates to other things. But if this was connected lower, I guess it's hard to say without looking exactly like where these were connected. One, two. We could just count over like a half one and then 1, 2, half one and then 1, 2. So that was probably that corner around there. Or, yeah. And then this way, this way, this way, this way. So this was probably related to that location. So maybe this here was really all the way out, and even possibly attributing to the formation of Lake Maracaibo. When did Lake Maracaibo form? That one. Seems a little late if they were still together, the continents, to the point that they are. Wouldn't be needed for this. Like, this would have to be pretty much over here to be flowing current into there. Although maybe it kind of got caught in that location and flowed in there until it kind of skipped over here. No. I don't know. Or it started flowing, having its current divided. That was going on into this location because all these currents are really flowing there. I guess it could be flowing from there. No, definitely not. Definitely flowing over here. Mind you, it's flowing into resistance that is then ejecting like a jet stream through this way. Over here at some point in the process, or over here at some point in the process, where then in the process it moves to this other point of focus, I guess, where energies are flowing in terms of where it's flowing, and like runs into resistance along the way, I guess, maybe. There's certainly currents coming down this way that are getting over, going across. But maybe getting over, because this was initially attached from like here to here. So current was going that way. And then the Rockies started to form as pressures built up. And then maybe it moved it over. And in the process, interacted with this current coming down this way and created the northern Andes. And then it interacted with the currents out here that are applying a pressure across the rest of South America pretty much, to then create like this type of boundary from the North American interaction with this current down to here, where it has influence at least on these, and then this portion being more related maybe to other currents overall, or even having a boundary of influence that's more out there. Maybe. Okay, so that's this shallogram. Maybe real quick, these are some other fossils that I came across. I'll link this Twitter thread with the links within it, because I will just click through them real quick. They look feasibly like some kind of current could be involved in cycling here. Like, the boundary out here is a little curious. Like, it starts here, it goes over this way, goes around it, around there, and then seemingly around there we see some subtle things. So where's the boundary of this? Is this the boundary? But then, like, there's definitely the pass back there. There looks like there might be back there too. And then, like, the structure itself maybe even extends out there, down there, across there. Like, what exactly? I don't know. I don't know how much these have been studied or found. I don't know. They're kind of enigmas that have like some overlay explanation that's maybe not really that important in the overall picture, where it doesn't get much attention except for just like, well, I don't know. These are like 550 million radiometric dating, 540, like early in the Earth's expansion process, where it seems like they could be current induced, where maybe because it's early in the process, it looks different at the time. Like, I didn't find any of these more recent than like 400 something million. It has a tab. It has a tab, like a chakra. Like, this thing happens like just in the Himalayas, like right here. On the end of the Himalayas, a tab is there that has another structure above it that like buttons it in. And then another one here. Those are the most defined ones I can think of off the top of my head. And then this Baja, or Papua New Guinea. Baja. It was adjacent. It was adjacent. This one kind of like that. Like, the more we see them, the more it's like every boundary. Like, really, like these. Like, what? Oh my god. Again, it extends past some boundary with like little poke holes, like current flow is going in there. Like running down channels and then running into resistance and going like deeper into the structure. Over here, like ramping out, I guess. Into some other layer. I don't know what this is found like in terms of its surroundings. This one with another tab type thing that would, by itself, maybe seem like just that's how it was. But coupled with this one, what the fuck? This one, like, what the, like, and then there's the same thing going on here, but like, it's squished. We can see some ripples going on in there. In the way the structure is, this is more flat. This is more like a mound formed. Opening with a connecting space that's not as opened. And then opening, connecting space, opening, connecting, opening, connecting, opening. Kind of fading away from here. Up to the crescendo where it's most eroded up here, and then it turns into dots over here, and then it bends over to a little corner for some reason, which from a fossil standpoint would just be happenstance in essence would be happenstance, which would make it not that important or worth like really focusing on and noticing the details of. That's just how the leaf was contained in the rock or whatever this is. That's just how the thing was contained, how it happened. There's nothing to like really glean from it. But if it's current induced and we're looking to see if it is, then it can become more revealing. Here's another one that kind of reminded me of the. This was from Wikipedia. Tribrachidium. Kind of reminiscent. Like this could happen in current flows, especially when it's happening in this kind of way in current flows. Like, I don't think this is the same structure though. Like if we go back, not the same structure. Like definitively different structure. So it's not like this is one of those already known creatures. This is a mathematical expression written in the stone based on current flows that are highly unique in shallograms in terms of storing the data, representing the things that happen all the time, because it's really happening in a fractal way everywhere down through the layers. It's just, it's not typically displayed in large scale things to just look at that are like just sitting around, unless we look at them from like space. Let's say like we look at it doesn't matter, just the whole of it, everything like is totally different then. Like you could be on Fiji and never realize there's this like spiraling eddy structure conjoining all the way through like this, having all sorts of nuance and just so epic that then you wouldn't know by standing there that next to Fiji was the center of where Hawaii was basically being born. As a sphere that was emitted from an ammonite contained within Australia. See my last video. Very different topic, I guess, but that went over here and then ended up over here, breaking apart Ontong Java Plateau, Manihiki and Hikurangi Plateau, as well as lodging material in Ecuador and in Antarctica from the Manihiki Plateau. And this current flow that branched out in a trident is right there, right next to Fiji, but, well, north of Fiji, that then transported Hawaii, where it ended up causing the Earth to expand by reaching the North Pole. Certainly there are things imprinted in large scale in different places other than shallograms, but a mathematical display of this nature is a rare sight. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed. Later.